Chris Lotz with the Pat Lotz Real Estate Group. Thanks for tuning in to another episode of Beyond the Keys, a Pat Lotz podcast. Where are we today? We're in a completely different space.
Yes, love it.
Studio is transforming. Great backdrop, same desk, new mics, new cameras. Hopefully, it kind of hits it home to kind of like quality. A step up at least.
Yeah.
So today we are talking about, on a broad spectrum, sellers' disclosures. Good topic throughout all of real estate. And actually, I had a phone call yesterday about a transaction that happened 6 months ago, but it pertained to sellers' disclosures and lack of disclosing, or if it should have been disclosed in that situation.
Correct.
And we can talk about that in a minute. But I hate to say it's a hot topic, but the Idaho college murders, those 3 students, thoughts and prayers go out to those families. Nonetheless, when I saw that, and as I'm thinking about it, I think about what needs to be disclosed. And every once in a while, like, we purchased a home that the old man passed away in it, and it wasn't disclosed, but we knew about it. So I've never thought about it until you thought of and in most of the documents they talk about a brutal death,
Right.
homicide, murder being one of them. So is that something that needs to be disclosed?
Not in our state.
Not in our state.
Not in the state of Michigan. It does not to be disclosed. And Chris, you have a list of the ones of the states that require that. But
let's just kick that out of the way.
Yeah.
While we're talking about it. So the list of states. In most of the U.S., you do not need to disclose a death in or on your property. If you are in Alaska, California, Delaware, Georgia, Indiana, Kansas, Kentucky, Nebraska, New Jersey, Ohio, South Dakota, Vermont, there are circumstances where you would need to disclose a natural death, suicide, homicide, or other circumstances for reporting deaths.
Yes.
Michigan not being one of those.
Yep. Nope. They're not. Fortunately, in our community, we have very few, homicides, suicides. But it's important, if you're a buyer's agent and you know that information, to educate your buyers on it, because the first neighbor they meet, they will be disclosed of what has happened in that house. And so any information you can have as a buyer's agent.
That's where we learned about, or we're informed about the death in our house, was a neighbor.
Yeah. And a lot of people don't realize that people have passed, and some buyers will say, "Oh, could you ask if anybody died in the house?" Well, a lot of times people don't really know that.
Yeah.
The current residents, of course, but prior to that.
I showed a house to the Dupays 2 years ago. Oak Point backs up to Chilson Road, so not the best location for Oak Point. And then it was vacant, and MJ kept saying, and she texted me the other day, because now it's back up for sale. Yeah. But it's occupied now. And she was like, "Oh, this house is haunted. This house is haunted." And that was one of the questions that she wanted me to illegitimately to ask the agent, was like, "Is this house haunted? Is something happening in this
Some
home?"
people are funny about that. Yeah.
Maybe it was just a weird vibe.
Yeah.
Do you feel like not disclosing, and again, too, it's not necessarily pertinent in our community because of the low homicides and death is obviously natural, normal, but for, the suicides and the murder specifically, not pertinent to us. But do you see value in disclosing or having to disclose those things for the states that do require that?
I believe in full disclosure, because if it's going to be a problem, they may find out through the transaction, and it may backfire. So, some people are particular about things. So, full disclosure, I've never sold a house that there's been a murder or suicide in. I've looked at homes that I've known that there are, and I do tell my buyers.
Yeah. Well, and to your point of when in doubt, disclose. I don't know if that's what you said, but more or less, when in doubt, disclose. And that's kind of where I side with, on the buy side specifically, in certain situations when they're disclosing, water in the basement, gutters were full, grade was not appropriate. Cause, solution, period.
Yep.
So when in doubt, disclose, because if you're not disclosing, water in the basement. And we have an elaborate seller's disclosures that entails all aspects of the home. And trying to get as much knowledge out of the sellers as possible. But specifically, some of the important parts to disclose that you should be disclosing are structural improvements or issues, but also you can have cause problem solution, water problems, insect infestations, legal issues, environmental issues, and hazards. Those are kind of like the really, really big ones that if you're not disclosing that properly, it can come back to bite you hard.
Well, I mean, for example, just to go through, a couple of these, really the top section just talks more about some of the mechanicals of the property. Is it in working condition? Yes. If not, no. If you don't know, it's unknown. And then not available means it doesn't exist in the home.
Doesn't exist there.
So that gets a little bit
confusing.
So you clarify that when you're working with the sellers.
And technically, when you're not, and you don't, an agent does not fill out seller disclosures.
No.
But when you are approaching your sellers with seller disclosures, is there any type of guidance that you're able to give as a real estate agent to how you fill those out, or is it more or less, here's the seller's disclosures, you have to fill this out independently to the best of your knowledge? Yes, no, unknown means you don't know, or not available, not there. Is that how you kind of explain it?
To the best of their ability. They'll go, well, for example, we have an alarm system that was put in the house, but we've never used it. I said, so you don't know if it works or not? No, then it's unknown. It's here. They might be able to activate it, that kind of thing. And obviously if they don't have a pool or a wall liner equipment, it's not available.
Yeah.
So that's one thing. And then, so another guidance, they'll say, well, basement crawl, has there ever been evidence of water? If yes, explain. Well, the hot water heater rusted out the bottom and it leaked. I go, disclose it. I said, first off, when the property inspection arises, they're going to see any water stains or anything like that. And they're going to say what this is from. So disclose.
It's hard to hide water. And that's exactly what I spoke to the buyer about yesterday is if there's major issues or previously were major issues, one, they should have disclosed it if it was knowledge to them, period.
Yeah.
But then also two, and if I've heard this once, I've heard it 1,000 times from, lawyers. The next battle is being able to prove that there was an issue that they actually knew about. And water, you can't hide water problems.
Right.
But the bigger question mark is did that happen yesterday or did that happen 20 years ago?
Right.
And do you have knowledge of that? But to your point, when in doubt, disclose it.
Well,
it's only to protect you.
Your issue was more like pipes bursting in the attic. So that's not on the disclosure, but it also says if there's any additional information that you should disclose, add another sheet. But my thought is that if there was something that transpired in the attic and they didn't disclose it, there might have been an insurance claim on it, which should have come up when they were getting insurance.
It would have came up, yes.
Yeah. So.
And two, even probably the last point of this is, unfortunately, there's times where timing is everything. They've been in that home and it was actually their primary residence for a good part of 10, 15 years. Did they ever experience this? I guess not. Was it just dumb luck and chance? Maybe. Was it because they weren't actively in that house consistently using the water? Maybe. Or is it because, and then two, just because it was stupid on how it was installed does not mean it's negligence.
No, and the sellers weren't outwardly trying to hide anything.
Hide it, exactly.
Yeah, it's knowing the material facts about the home.
And if there was a major issue, we probably more or less would have seen it.
Well, too, and you had the inspection, and it was a good inspection.
Yeah.
So definitely. And then, a lot of times, like the next question would be insulation. Describe if known. Most people do not know what insulation they have. I mean, blown in, fiberglass. They're not in the attic. They didn't build the home. So if you really don't know, then it's unknown.
Unknown. Yeah.
Roof leaks, age of the roof if known. It's really nice to know.
And that's the tough part about maybe seller disclosure sometimes is being too specific, because then you're being held to a standard. And there's a few times where somebody says something that the age of the roof is 5 years and it's actually 10 years. So sometimes
So if you don't know,
siding on the side of caution sometimes might be better in the big picture. You're still not, I mean, you're still disclosing that. I don't know. But saying that it's a 5-year-old roof and it actually being a 10-year-old roof, that's a big difference. Could be a big difference. And I'll give you an example. Well, maybe it's not an applicable example to like the age of a roof, but we had somebody, we were buy side, sell side. We had somebody put either unknown, it was a water softener. It was that house in Milford. And they either put, I think they put unavailable. No, I think they did yes water softener.
yes.
But it was yes water softener, and it wasn't yes the water softener is functioning properly. So they clicked yes on that
Saying
water
that
softener.
it was working properly.
Yes, and it was actually, and we did a home inspection, and I guess this wasn't ever caught, but it was actually just bypassed and not being utilized. So then when the buyers got possession of the house, that water softener was leaking. So when you're closing, and that's before we even got keys or possession, the day of keys and possession, and this is actively leaking. That's an issue that needs to be addressed. The conversation was then, well, no, they meant to put unknown on functionality. They felt like they should have put unknown. Well, unfortunately, we've already worked through the transaction. You didn't put unknown. You put yes, that it was functioning properly. It was actually being bypassed. So the buyers in that situation felt like they were entitled to a new water softener, or a water softener that was actually functioning. So what it ended up, and I don't know exactly what transpired, and it was between them. Buyer had an attorney draft up exactly what they wanted to accomplish, and it was receiving 50% of the damage deposit, which was probably $2,000, $1,000. They got themselves a new water softener. So again, back to disclosing. When in doubt, disclose, and really understand what you're marking and what you're understanding, because a buyer is going to hold you to that.
Well, it's really important document. I mean, again, it's really important that you fill it out properly to the best of your knowledge. Now, if the previous owner bypassed it and he's never utilized it, I mean, that's a whole nother thing. That's a whole nother story. Yeah. So it's all of that. Now, the next one's well. That's not, the biggest thing is well water. Has the water been tested? That's really important. If you have, and it's disclosed some sort of bacteria, arsenic, nitrate, you have to disclose it, but the buyers will retest it.
Yeah, and we always do a water test regardless of what that says, because most likely it probably says good results when we purchased in 2014.
That's it. 6
years can change anything. There could be coliform bacteria. There could be E. coli. So it's for $150, $200, peace of mind to know that you're drinking clean water.
Yep. Yeah, and it's always fixable. It's always fixable. And that's something that the sellers, if they have no knowledge of that, I'm sure they'll go ahead and take care of.
Yep. I think actually a lot of people too, they go, oh my goodness.
They're upset.
We've been drinking coliform water.
Yeah.
Which in the big picture, like how much water do you need to drink to actually feel effects of coliform? I don't know. But at the end of the day, I don't want to be drinking bacteria.
I really don't want to do that either. And I really don't want to drink arsenic.
Yeah.
I mean, again, problem, cause, solution. Everything is fixable.
Yeah.
I mean, they've got some sophisticated removal of arsenics.
What are the things that you're pointing out, you're focusing in on when it comes to disclosures? I can tell you what mine are. So think about yours. Obviously, I focus on these bottom sections, more or less. Property conditions, improvements, and additional information. So basement crawl space, I do want to see no evidence of water. If we do see evidence of water, I want to see problem, solution. Insulation, not too worried about that. Like you said, you can always expand on that stuff. I like to look at the age of the roof, so number 3. You're most likely getting no leaks and approximate age of known NA. But I like to see that if it's a brand new roof, just so we get a better idea. Something that's going to come up on inspection, but if we're able to tackle that at a showing, great. Well, I'm not too worried about that. Water can be fixed. We can always figure those things out. And then obviously too, functionality of the well and the well water pressure tank is going to come up in the inspection. So something you could be talking about.
Yep.
I do like to see septic tanks, drain fields. The thing I like to see on there is last pumped. Is that a metric for the functionality of the septic field? No. But it's good to see that they may have previously
maintained
it. I almost maybe even sometimes would rather them not, and your tank is going to fill up fast with water. But if we have an empty tank, we can't we can't prove functionality in terms of a load test. Run water and see if there's fluctuation of value.
Right.
So if they pump that and maybe that's a piece of advice. If you're going to pump your septic tank, do it 2 months before you list the house. It's a clean tank, but then your water gets back to that level, so you can prove that it's actually
just nice. Yeah.
I do like to see heating system, approximate age. And then those are the things that I'm quickly scrolling through on. And then I also am always looking for the additional. If the answer to any of these questions is yes, please explain add additional sheets if necessary, an expanded version of any issues from the above. And again, more or less, if there was a problem or a yes, there's a cause, problem, solution. That's what I like to point out.
Well, all that is good stuff. What I like to make sure that they're specific about, too, is environmental problems. If they're aware of any substances, materials, or products that may have environmental hazards. Well, around here, we have radon gas. So if they're aware of it, we disclose it. And if there's a remediation system put in, that's great. Lead-based paint, obviously, we've got a disclosure for that. Fuel or chemical storage tanks. People forget that they had a furnace when they bought it and there was an oil tank buried outside. That's kind of important that they disclose that, because I have found those on inspections, and then that's a whole nother beast and inspection. Also, what is pretty important is structural modifications, alterations, or repairs made without necessary permits or licensed contractors. Okay, that is a tricky one because we have a lot of handy people. They finish their lower level. And they're thinking, okay, well, I really didn't need permits for that. Well, if you did plumbing and electrical, heating and cooling, anything like that, that does require a permit and a licensed contractor. So sometimes people will say no, and I have to talk to them about that. You did your lower level, did you, get permits and license? And they'll say no. I said, then you need to answer that properly and say, well, yes, I, structural modifications altered made without necessary permits or licensed contractor. Yes. And the reason is that there was a time when I was at continuing education that somebody put no, and the previous homeowner did the work, and there was a major fire, and that went to court.
Yeah.
So, if you're saying no and you did it yourself, I mean, granted, there's an inspection and all that other good stuff, but it's if you didn't, everybody knows that Mr. Homeowner usually finishes their own basement.
Yeah.
So be aware.
And again, side on the side of caution, even for my house. I've done a bathroom fan. I've done a little bit of electrical work. And I think and I'm only going to talk about for electrical. I asked my electrician the other day, I said, what technically needs to be, what's the minimum that needs to be pulled for a permit? He goes, the code says anything over $100 that's billable. That's everything. A light switch would cost $100 for an electrician to replace out. So really it's everything. And if you've touched anything in that house that should have or could have been, and a homeowner has the right to fix things. Does it need to be permitted? I don't know. I'm not code enforcement or municipality. I think there's a threshold for things that really probably should be. Side on the side of caution, though. No.
Yeah.
Permits were not pulled for certain things. Because again, a buyer can and will hold you to that standard if you weren't held to those. And then that's their question as well. So we might have to look back at the disclosures. For my example is they did a huge renovation. And I also think that renovation was permitted and regulated, but was everything permitted and regulated? The plumbing, the electrical, does that hold them liable at that point in time if they said no or yes? Because plumbing most likely would need to be inspected. Yeah, and
especially
permitted. In that construction.
Absolutely. So it's just one of those that don't take that lightly. And again, it's informing the buyer. So first off, in their mind, they know, okay, their permits were not pulled. So do I have a general inspector come and look at this, or should I have a licensed electrician come to check that it's been done properly and safely. Now, your general inspector typically is knowledgeable about what code is and what's safe, health and safety. So they might say in the report, contact and consult with a licensed contractor.
Yeah.
So
that's at least what we trust our inspector enough to have a great general view. But then if he's seeing something that's a question mark, it's always, you got to seek professional's advice.
Right.
Versus sometimes these inspectors will say, no, this is what needs to happen. For liability, if I'm an inspector, even as a real estate agent, I'm always saying we need to talk to a professional.
Well, because
I'm not going to say,
we're real estate agents. We're not electricians. We're not plumbers. We're not roofers. And again, I can look at a roof and look at a disclosure and say, well, it's questionable, but I'm not a roofer, so guess what we're going to do?
Call a roofer.
Yeah.
I knew seller disclosures were very important, but now after having this conversation, it seems like it's like the two most important pieces of documents in listing docs. I mean, would you agree on that?
Oh yeah, very important.
A PA is very important to define how things are going to be structured in terms of financing and timelines. But shoot, those are probably the most two important documents. And that's, you said, the reason I'm bringing this up is you said, don't take these two documents lightly because sellers might not realize, oh, it's okay.
Yeah.
But these are things that are very serious.
And they're very important. And again, buyers look at them. They're basing a lot of their offer based on some of this stuff and their visual look. So there might be something that is not visible to the eye when they're putting their offer in. And, say we get in the attic and there's mold in there and, rodents. Well, a lot of sellers don't realize that because they're not hanging in their attic. So that's why you have inspections. But I also think that it's very important to buyers. Sellers do the best they can. Sometimes they're off.
Yeah, that reminds me, I need to tell that couple that is buying that house straight from the builder, potentially. They haven't seen sellers disclosures yet. So at what point in the process do you need to see those sellers disclosures? Is it before closing or is it before the due diligence period?
It should be
immediately.
It should be with the purchase agreement.
Okay.
Because it says in the purchase agreement that it depends on the purchase agreement that they used.
I'll remind them because, again, that's something that's very serious. You made me think about it because of the fuel tanks. And I think that was something that was informed to them, not in the form of a seller's disclosures, but there is an old fuel tank that's buried up. And is there fuel in it? Is it empty? Is it filled?
It has to be inspected by somebody that specializes in that environmental issue.
Yeah.
Because could it have leaked and contaminated soil? Sure.
Yeah. And two, that's an individual that does real estate, or he's a builder, so he has an impact on the real estate transaction, and then his wife's a real estate agent. How are you not providing seller's disclosures? And actually, it even amazes me when we go on, and it happens all day long. So don't think that this is not abnormal, but all day long we go onto the MLS, new listing,
no disclosures.
No disclosures.
Yeah. Yep, that's kind of important.
But that's the difference between an agent that's been doing it for 25 years and is proactive on that front and realizes how important this is.
Well, sure.
Versus somebody who's like, it's okay. We'll kind of figure those things out. So was there anything else on the...
No, I think we've covered it.
So all in all, seller's disclosures are going to kind of give a great overview and a comprehensive list of all the items that are covered. Like you said, fixtures, appliances, electrical systems and components, plumbing, heating, whether it's forced air boiler, cooling systems, and all of those components associated with the home.
Right.
Insulation, roof, anything that they can think of. Some of the big things to really point out that anyone would say about seller's disclosures is the catastrophic things, structural of the property and improvements. And I think that's the important part is if there was an issue, what are the improvements? And that's with anything, with water problems, with infestations, with legal issues, with environmental issues and hazards.
Well, insurance claims too. Something we didn't,
claims?
If there's a claim.
Like you said too, those would probably come up within the insurance company, but...
I don't like those surprises.
Exactly. I was just going to say that. That's cool. We can figure those things out and we can always have a conversation about it.
But why didn't you tell us that?
I forget what deal it was, and it was a deal, and there was a big insurance claim for this house, and it was like 3 claims of $20,000 each.
Yeah, I remember it.
And they briefly disclosed it on one of those lines and said, insurance claim. Well, A little insurance claim is completely different than $60,000.
The same problem was happening. And finally,
it was pink day.
Finally, they removed the washer and dryer and put it down in the lower level. Yep. There was some laundry room issue. I don't know what it was.
You know what house it was?
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, I wonder what it was. Was somebody putting the wrong detergent in? Was somebody not closing the door? I mean, I'm sure that's not the case, but that's where they were having the problems. That front corner, 3 times issues with the washer and dryer, and finally put it in the basement. But again, 3, that's big. 3.
Was it 3 or 2?
I think it was 3.
Okay.
Either way, if it's 2, well, it's one is too many. So if it's 2 is way too many.
Yeah, got it.
Don't take these things lightly. This is all about protection and liability to make sure that you're protected throughout the real estate transaction. If your agent is not taking SDs seriously, you take SDs seriously, and just make sure that you're disclosing things properly and protecting yourself. So when you sell this home, you can move forward with peace of mind that you're taking care of.
Doing the right thing.
And doing the right, it's just about doing the right thing and having a clear conscience.
Well, think about it. You sure wouldn't want to buy a house, the next house you buy, and not have the information to make a good, sound decision. So do what you want, do things that you'd want to do.
Yeah, if I've heard you say it once, I've heard you say it a million times. I got to sleep at night.
Yeah.
And 2, even if sellers are saying, "Hey, should I disclose those things?" Well, yes.
I back off if they say, "Well, I'm not disclosing them." Then I can't be a part of this.
Too much liability on you.
Yeah, I can't be a part of it.
We were talking the conversations about signing the buyer agency agreements. It's like that's a lot for you not to do it. That's a lot. That's all liability on us. That's 0 liability on you as a buyer or a seller, but that's all liability on us. And that's too risky. That's so short-sighted to the extent of what a career could be. That one thing could crush you.
Absolutely.
And seller disclosures could crush a seller, could crush an agent, depending on what that actually is and why it wasn't disclosed.
Well, and the thing is that if certain clients don't want to follow our blueprint or how we do things, and we just don't work with them because that tells you their motivation and their desire to get the deal done.
Yeah, we'll close it out here. Again, this was kind of all about the Idaho college murders.
Got you thinking.
Thoughts and prayers got me thinking about what it means to disclose things for suicides and homicides. Again, if you're in Alaska, California, Delaware, Georgia, Indiana, Kansas, Kentucky, Nebraska, New Jersey, Ohio, South Dakota, Vermont, probably something you're already hip with. Yeah. All of those other states, not something that needs to be disclosed. Right. I guess in the terms of, homicides and murders and suicides, whether you give that information, that's another thing. For better or worse, to be determined. But, thanks for tuning in for Seller Disclosures. Anything you want to close them out on? Any takeaways that we talked about?
No.
What are your top 2 takeaways about seller disclosures?
Just do it to the best of your ability. Problem, cost, solution. Just document it, and you're going to be in good shape.
Good deal. So Chris Lotz and
Pat Lotz
with the Pat Lotz Real Estate Group. There's lots to love in Livingston County. And as always, buy local, use local. We'll see you in the next one.
Thanks for watching. Make sure to use those like, comment, and share buttons below. And don't forget to follow us on Facebook and Instagram, and subscribe to our YouTube channel at Pat Lotz Real Estate for more helpful home buying and selling tips. Want a free comparable market analysis? Scan that QR code on your screen or visit our website at www.patlotz.com and fill out the request form. There's lots to love in Livingston County.